Okay, so The Acolyte is over. It's probably canceled by now. I'm joined by Gray Poupe. Uh, 8 episodes, 1 season of The Acolyte are done. How incredibly awful was this series for you, Gray?
I gotta be honest. There's a lot of pluses and a lot of minuses. It wasn't successful. I gotta be honest. If I had to go like thumbs up or thumbs down, it would be like kind of right in the middle, pointing towards down. It sucks because they took a big gamble. There's kind of this mystery or this event that they want to show from a couple different ways, and they just sacrifice a lot to kind of do that premise, and I just don't think it paid off the way that they wanted it to. So for me, that's not great.
Yeah, I agree with you. Although, there are pluses and minuses, and some of it I feel like it's a little cringy, but what Star Wars doesn't have some element of cringe to it?
For sure.
If somebody thinks that this is fun, a change of pace, cool. I'm not going to take that from anybody. But at the same time, there are some, like, I don't think it's great or horrible. I think it has moments where it is bad and moments where it's, oh, that's a nice idea. That's unique. But for the most part, it's eager with trying to do something different with Star Wars. And my experience from the internet is that Star Wars fans do not want to be challenged. That is what I've come to. Like, I don't know if this is a show I would have watched if it weren't for all the noise. And because of the noise, it was one of those things like, this can't be that bad, can it? And I actually kind of got won over by the halfway point. I was like, oh, let's see where this is going. And it was fun, and then not for a little bit. But considering where the season ends, it's one of those things where if it's done, so be it. But if there's another season, I'd be interested. I don't know if I'll be there every week loyally, but
yeah, I certainly hope they don't do kind of the same type of gimmicky premise where it all kind of hinges on this one thing.
Yeah.
It seemed like when they weren't trying to do that, there was some elements that could have been neat, but I just think there was so much sacrifice for that. So I'd probably watch it if there was a second season, but I am not like champing at the bit. I'm not championing this by any means.
Right. It's incredibly mid is the best way I can put it. There are things where it's like, ooh, that might be neat, or that might be a terrible failure, but it's not one of those things like where it's this giant cliffhanger. You're like, oh, Yoda, what's up? It's not like that. So I don't know. I just feel bad for somebody that's kind of interested in it, only to be grounded out by all this noise. I'm not, mind you. It's just I don't think it's too powerful in a positive or negative light. I do appreciate the effort, but so this video, I didn't want to focus on any of the big people in Disney, Star Wars, YouTube, or anything, but something that's been getting on my, I don't want to say getting on my nerves, something that's kind of catching my attention recently is a lot of these buzzwords, a lot of things that people just seem to be parroting other things that the bigger critics are saying. And it just feels to me like it is just that. It's just parroting where people say, oh, here's bad writing, Kathleen Kennedy, other thing, woke. And there's not any sort of substance to it. It's just like, okay, here are the terms I need to use to get a certain algorithmic push, and I'm going to say them without backing it up at all with any of my feelings. And woke. Okay, I'll see you next week.
They seem to be kind of popular, though. I don't know. I've seen even like smaller channels with videos that are basically just that, and they just seem to be skyrocketing.
Right.
So,
right.
I don't know. And the internet's kind of craving hate for this somehow.
Yeah, I listen. If somebody's making money, I can't hate the player. I get it. But at the same time, if I asked you to explain what you mean by something, could you possibly tell me? And I so much so was checking these things out that I got suggested a review from a larger than me, mind you, a smaller YouTuber that that review was up for like an hour or two, and it had thousands of views already. And I was like, all right, well, this is brand new. Let me see what this person has to say. And that's something that we have handy. And I'm curious to know if maybe it's just me that feels triggered by certain buzzwords, or if I'm crazy.
No, well, I mean, I guess the audience can always decide, but yeah, I also found this kind of buzzword heavy. Since it was kind of a longer video, and apparently it takes us forever to go through anything, I cut it down a little bit. But yeah, I don't think I took anything out of context. So definitely check me on that. Okay. But yeah, I did notice quite a bit of buzzwords as well. And I wanted a little bit more substance to the critique. Yes. I think that's the one thing that I'd say this kind of lacked in most places. There are some places where there's some substance there for sure. But yeah, without further ado.
Watched the Acolyte finale last night, and I didn't really sleep well because of it. It made me so depressed. The episode that I watched last night, the finale, was the worst thing I have ever seen from Star Wars, in quotation marks, because it was not Star Wars. This is not Star Wars. But talking about anything that has ever been released over the banner of Star Wars, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not being hyperbolic. The Acolyte finale is the worst thing that has ever been produced under the Star Wars banner. Okay. This episode.
There is the Christmas special, the infamous one.
It's a shame she didn't say she's not being hyperbolic. Oh, wait, she did say she's not being hyperbolic. It's the worst thing with the word Star Wars on it. I would say that's a little extreme, a little hyperbolic, a little superlative heavy.
Yeah, so I was hoping she'd explain what she means by worst. But yeah, I did do a little bit of editing, but she just keeps saying worst over and over again, which, yeah.
So takes the cake. It is the worst thing that I have ever seen produced under the Star Wars banner. You know, Kathleen Kennedy is just an incompetent businesswoman. We shouldn't go crazy with conspiracy theories. I was trying to be level-headed with that one, but after watching this, I'm back to Kathleen Kennedy seems like she legitimately hates Star Wars, and she legitimately hates the people who love Star Wars. That's
what was it? Incompetent business person. About Kathleen Kennedy, who is the third highest grossing producer in the world and the second highest grossing producer in the US, above the likes of Jerry Bruckheimer. And that's saying something. And most of the money that Kathleen Kennedy has made as a business person is as head of Lucasfilm. So you can say one thing about the quality or the subjectivity of the art, but as far as business is concerned, she's surpassed only by Kevin Feige. So I don't know if you would call that incompetent, but I wouldn't mind swapping checkbooks with them, either of them.
For sure. And I guess that's not the only measure, but man, to go even further than that and just say that she obviously hates the fans and hates anyone who loves Star Wars. It's like, wow, I'm really hoping you kind of back that up, because that's, again, no hyperbole here. But yeah, I don't get that she hates the fans. I do get that they're doing their own thing. Like when, Disney acquired them, they kind of got rid of everything that was Legends, and now it's basically anything in the movies or the TV show. And other than that, it's kind of out there a little bit. So I don't know if you count that as like hates the fans, maybe you'd have an argument there, but I don't think she goes into the substance of that as much. But even then, this show brought in a ton of stuff. So I don't know that it did it in the best way, but it's a trade-off. But there's a lot of fun stuff it did bring into this series that kind of got solidified into canon from Legends.
What's your take on new things being introduced to something that has decades of lore to it?
I mean, they're kind of doing this already. So I'm not the biggest fan of the High Republic whole series of like comics and books and everything. I've only kind of skimmed it, and it seems all right, but it doesn't seem like it's really for me. But they're doing something new. And then this is the first time that they've kind of put that on screen. I think that's cool. Especially when they kind of said the premise of the show, I was kind of excited. It's like, okay, that could be cool. A murder mystery involving somebody taking out Jedi in this time of peace where the Jedi are in charge. That could be interesting. I don't know if that's exactly what we got, and I don't know if it was the best way of doing that.
Right.
But if you tell me like that's what this series is going to be, like that sounds exciting to me, and the potential for that is just so amazing. So I think new things are good. I think this could have been so good. I don't think the execution was where I wanted it to be, but I wasn't super excited for Andor, and that didn't feel super Star Wars to me. And I think that's my favorite Star Wars thing since probably the originals. We want things that are done well.
I agree. I also think that the method in which they did this, the Rashomon effect, going back and forth and showing you multiple perspectives, you really need us to fall in love with those characters or gain some sort of emotion for those characters before you go shooting back and forth like that, especially with introducing new characters. I need to know how I feel about them before I'm looking at other perspectives and thinking, oh, wait, which one's true? Which one am I really supposed to be interpreting as the honest take?
For sure. And I think that's the huge trade-off that we kind of got with this is they didn't go into any characterization. Like, I don't feel like we knew anyone from the show. And then all of a sudden, like episode 5 comes around and okay, there's this huge event that happens. I think that would have so much more impact if you actually knew these characters, if you knew some of their motivations. But I think that gets sacrificed for this kind of mystery and unreliable narrator thing so that you can then be wowed when you get the new context for the same event. I don't think that payoff worked. And I think there was so much sacrificed for that. It just, I don't know. I wanted so much more. When I heard the premise, it's like, this could be really cool. And then when I hear there's a Wookiee with a lightsaber, it's like, okay, this could be really cool. But here we are.
It's how it feels, but it's very shocking that Dave Filoni, like, I didn't think Dave Filoni was a good guy to put in charge of Star Wars. I don't have the confidence in him that others do. He's never cared about keeping the lore straight. But even on this level, I thought that I'm still surprised that he would let something like this go. I mean, The Acolyte is entirely incompetent writing, but I heard somebody say that this seems like
So if there's anything I've heard about Dave Filoni is the quality in which he maintains the lore. The one thing that I remember bridging the prequels to the sequels and the television series in that time was Dave Filoni is heading everything as far as the television end is concerned. And he's really careful to make sure everything makes sense with the Clone Wars series. And, if they're going to go backwards, he's kind of the consultant for them. So to say that Dave Filoni is somebody you wouldn't trust with that, I can only ask, who would you trust other than George Lucas himself? Who is the next best person to charge with lore? I just am awfully puzzled by that.
Intentionally incompetent writing, like they wanted to make something bad. But there's a lot of incompetent writing of just silly stuff, like May is tied up and she's heard it from Sol, the true story of what went on with the witches and how through a series of clownish events, they were killed. And watch the last episode.
So entirely incompetent writing. She brings up May being tied up and Sol is telling her something. What is incompetent about that? The fact that May is tied up and doesn't try to...
She still has the droid, that he didn't take the droid away or whatever. And we've seen that the droid can pick locks before. So I don't know. It does seem like a plot convenience. It doesn't seem like the greatest thing, but they telegraphed it earlier when she broke out of jail with the same droid, the same thing that it can do. So I don't know. It makes sense to me, but I guess she's right. If you wanted to write a flawless story, he should be, you're not OSHA, give me that droid. I don't know.
But we do find out in this episode that OSHA and May they're not sisters. They're actually the same person. They're like a split person's DNA or whatever. I feel like that got grazed over so much by everybody, including the show. That should be a kind of a big deal. Like, why is one person in two bodies? What's going on here?
It definitely seems like that is something that they're going to have to tackle next season. But I don't know. They did not really tackle that this season.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like that. I'd like to be explained that, not to compare this to Lost, but it's like the polar bears on the island in the beginning. Like, well hold on. Why is there a polar bear on the island? The fact that the droid recognizes May or OSHA or whatever, that kind of makes sense for the sake of they're the same DNA or whatever. There has to be contrivances in storytelling. Yes, is it a plot convenience? Of course it is. But how long do you think a show would be if everything worked out the way it should in reality? First of all, you're not getting a Star Wars show. Secondly, it's storytelling. It's not a documentary. All of this, there are certain levels of contrivance in storytelling. The fact that it's a story at all is contrived. Within the world that you're in, how much believability is there that you allow for more or less contrivance? I think as far as May and Osha are concerned, do they keep up with everything that they set up? No. I was okay with it. I don't think it's entirely incompetent is this troubling thing.
I would also hope that you'd kind of expand upon that, what entirely incompetent means, because, it would be a little bit smarter if Soul had taken the droid away, but I don't know if that's completely incompetent writing or if it's this character who's not the greatest of Jedi and seems to be kind of a slave to his emotions. Perhaps he didn't think that through. I don't know.
That's the other thing. It's
hard to tell if it's bad writing or a bad trait in a character.
Yeah, that could be visual storytelling too, because they don't have to show us a close-up of the droid. That's visual storytelling. It could be in the script. It certainly can. Also, the characteristics do play into that a little bit, where, like you said, Soul is like really messed up about this. A lot of buzzwords that people use is bad writing. Never exactly what it is. Like, it's this blanket term, bad writing, when you don't understand, like, what is it? Is there a line in the script that you don't like? Is there something that doesn't make sense? Because there's so many different hands in the process. And, a lot of the shot selections, that could be cinematography, that could be direction, the choice of what to put in the shot, that could be the editor. And just blaming the writer at all times, and not even a specific one, because Headland is the showrunner, but for each episode there's different writers, so it's an awful lot to put on a nameless face. And
speaking of a nameless person, Pablo Hidalgo is the dude who Leslie Headland had to keep running everything by to see that it was part of canon. So there is actually somebody in charge of that. They did run all this stuff by someone, and they were told, this is fine, this doesn't break our canon. So,
right.
I don't know. That I guess technically he would be the one to blame, but it doesn't seem like there's blame here.
Well, the other thing is, you might have said it, or I might have alluded to it, but Soul is still figuring out that May and Osha are both alive, which he thought one of them died. And he's kind of still shocked about it. It's like emotions don't count when criticizing things, and it's not that egregious to me, especially when you set the precedent that we're having unreliable narrators for some of these episodes, where at constant times it's like, oh, how much of this is actually happening, how much of it is exploited for somebody's perspective. It's not the greatest way to do storytelling, and it hasn't worked before in Star Wars. See Last Jedi.
Yeah, your mileage may vary with that one.
Right.
I know it's the most controversial one. And, Leslie Headland did actually say that and Rashomon kind of inspired what she wanted to do with this. So I think she's got the same thing going on here. It does seem to be very polarizing. But I'm not seeing a ton of love out there. And anyone who is saying that it's good or it has good elements is called a shill. So I'm not digging that part. I'm sure somebody will say we're shilling, and somebody will say we're wrong about even praising what we did praise. I don't know.
I don't know that. Like, if I have a friend who's pretty like gung ho about Star Wars stuff, I don't like talking to my Star Wars friends, because I'm not rah about it. If this is shilling, then man, the bar is so low.
We're definitely doing it wrong. Those checks aren't rolling in here.
Yeah.
But Disney, if you are watching,
we're chasing the wrong algorithm.
Thing I've seen on your.
Sorry, I stepped on you there, Gray.
No, it's all good.
If Disney's watching,
then we're right here. It's not the worst thing you've ever done.
Yes. I agree.
Realize that everything happened through bad writing and clownish misunderstandings, and that is how this skirmish on, I can't even remember the name of the planet, and I don't care right now. That's how the skirmish between the Jedi and the witches happened. So May, with this new revelation, for some reason she has her droid near her, and that droid is able to get her free. And it's like, so you have this woman that you know is dangerous tied up, but you also have her droid right next to her hand where it could easily cut her loose. So there's a lot of that kind of writing, stuff that doesn't make sense for the plot, stuff that doesn't make sense for them to be able to do. But that is all secondary to what happens in this show. But she goes into an asteroid field around a planet. I forget the technical name of it. And Sol chases her in there. And for whatever reason, he's going to shoot her down, I guess, because he talks about how he regrets not being able to save her and Osha. But apparently he's also willing to kill her so the information won't get out or whatever that is. And
so first of all, again, back to visuals, that asteroid field scene shot is incredible visually.
It is.
Here I go.
It's not what I would have thought that like a ring of a planet would look like, but I don't know exactly what it would look like. But visually, that is really stunning, and it's kind of awesome to see the size difference in the two ships. Like I thought visually that was appealing. Did you think that he was trying to kill her in that moment? Like he definitely seemed so. Sorry, I would love to have your answer to that question.
No, I think so much about the visual. You talked about the size difference. That is as throwback as Star Wars can be about the differences in power and representation using only visuals, and the fact that they're both doing something rather risky to try to escape and try to. I don't think he's trying to kill her so much as he wants to make sure that she hears everything he has to say. And I think he wants to control what's happening in that perspective. Maybe not kill her. I mean, he hasn't really dealt with everything, I would say, and hasn't really taken responsibility for all of it by that point.
For sure. And I don't see it as he's trying to kill her either, but that is definitely how Basil interprets it, I'm assuming, since he kind of pulls the wires. I wasn't sure if they have like a tractor beam thing, which is also kind of a classic thing, but you do need to be within like a certain, distance of it, or if he just kind of got in like the heat of the chase. They kind of are cops or whatever. He just had a criminal escape from him and is now fleeing. Perhaps the adrenaline dump and he is seen to be not in control of his emotions. So perhaps that adrenaline dump got the most of him, but I didn't see that he was trying to kill her.
She had a broken taillight.
Reading into that a little bit. Yeah, she's just a fleeing suspect. He's got to apprehend her again. So he can explain the truth. I don't know. So maybe she's right. It's a little ambiguous, but I didn't necessarily take it as he was trying to kill her, but I think it would be safe to say that Basil did, and that's why he, pulled some wires and then made everyone crash real good.
And the term clownish misunderstandings, was that the term she used? Clownish misunderstandings.
Yes. There is some clownishness. I think it's more like when Basil attacks May in like the previous episode. No, two previous episodes ago. It's a bit clownish, and then her getting sprayed by the wall oil sockets, whatever that is. There's some clownish aspects, but I don't think that's what she's referring to.
Right.
She's saying clownish misunderstandings.
And if you're going like again without defining it, just repeating yourself on clownish misunderstandings, I cannot understand. I'm having a clownish misunderstanding of what she's trying to say. But I feel like
the problem is she's not saying much. Like that was what the horrible thing is. The worst thing is I can't remember the other one. And now clownish. It's like, okay.
I listen, if you're not on board with the whole, what people see from different perspectives and, people feel things differently. And what the show does is show you different perspectives of something and it kind of makes things cloudy. I can understand that, but they are doing a decent enough job of showing you, okay, from Basil's perspective, it looks like Saul's doing like fucked up shit. But if you're going with Saul's perspective, it's very, I don't know, emotional. So They established
so.
that enough for me that where I
way too much. They really telegraph that so much. Like I think it's pointed out like 3 times in the first 2 episodes that he has a little bit more emotion than most should as Jedi. He's teaching kids, and then all of a sudden they're seeing like fire and stuff when he should be exuding some calmness. Jackie calls him on it, and I can't remember, somebody else calls him on it. Maybe it was Endura. I'm kind of blanking, but they really telegraphed that a ton. And not to throw a wrench in it, but there is also a Darth Basil theory going out there. So who knows? I can't confirm that one, but and I don't know. It just doesn't come off as clownish misunderstandings to me, but maybe I'm wrong.
Also, again, as someone who operates and receives things a bit more visually than I do in the script, by this point, May is in white and Osha is in black. And, take those colors to mean exactly what you think of them in light and dark. And they're kind of telegraphing what's happening with the ending too. So at that point,
kind of classic Star Wars.
Yes.
They've always kind of done that with costumes.
Yes. But I don't know. I think that was a nice way of doing visual storytelling. But
I couldn't agree more. And I think they're getting a lot of heat for that. Like, come on, this is childish. And it's like, I guess, but are you giving the same criticism to, you can tell who's a good guy and bad guy based off of their saber color. Like it is kind of built into almost everything here.
Mm-hmm. And I think the one thing, and again, it's a shame it's not executed. I won't even say perfectly. It's a shame it's not executed well enough so that people can understand that good and evil isn't a thing. It's about good people doing bad things, bad people doing good things. It's sometimes a great person can do something bad. Sometimes a horrible person can do something good. It's not about what color your lightsaber or your shirt is. It's the morally gray area based.
Very based.
Sorry, I don't mean to steal your thunder there.
No, steal away, thunder.
But yeah, I think we're burying the lead a little bit. She does bring up good and bad and color and stuff in a little bit, but I
quite a few times.
Yeah, I do think that this show is, if anything, and again, not perfectly so, it's trying to tell you that there's more than just good and bad.
For sure.
So he's going to kill her, but then the gopher thing also stops him for some reason. Osha hears, she gets a vision of the Force or something, of somebody who she thinks is May choking Soul. And so she wants to go, presumably, to stop that from happening. And Queemar, the Sith Lord, goes with her. And it's like, okay, so you want to stop this from happening now? I don't understand what Queemar's, whatever you say his name, I don't understand what his motivations are.
Yeah. In the show, it's listed as Stranger.
Yes, he's Chimere, and then it becomes the Stranger. We don't know if Chimere was just an alias, but he's either Chimere or the Stranger.
Right. And what we know moving forward is that Plagueis is, who we assume is in the cave, who was there. I mean, the Acolyte, I think that's part of the misdirection is you're to believe that Osha is the Acolyte, but I think Queemir is the Acolyte to Plagueis. And I think what motivates Plagueis is to make sure that the creations of Plagueis are united. Because I think whatever you think is going on with May and Osha under Queemir, the Stranger, it's actually further back because, again, visually, they have no reason to show us the guy in the cave.
Mm-hmm. And who knows how long he's been there, so to speak. Like, is that foreshadowing that perhaps he was there all along?
Right.
Who knows?
And if you want to say that it's a bad job showing him without telling anything, I agree with that. But at the same time, how do you explain that shot? If I don't like that everything's right there for you, especially with an ending that ambiguous. And there's certainly things left unanswered, especially in a series where there's a lot of multiple perspectives where, is anybody sure of what the direct objective answer is within that story? Because everything's so messy and cloudy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, this series definitely doesn't hold your hand. There's a lot of things that you'd have to kind of connect. And then a lot of people connected, and apparently they don't actually connect yet, or perhaps they won't. They are definitely loose threads. So I hope they tie up some of those if they do get a second season. But Leslie Headland was saying that she was, in an interview, she was saying that she kind of wanted this to be a stepping stone, Chimera and Osha to Plagueis. So you're right. Everything that you were saying seems to check out with what she's saying in interviews. So, if we do get a second season, that would be cool if they actually explore that. That's something I'd be interested in seeing.
Yeah, and something else that I don't even think she covers in this video is the greenhead Jedi woman. She's not entirely good.
Yes,
and that's something.
And it's the first time we've seen her in canon now. But Vernestra Rowe is she's not exactly. She has a pink saber that's a whip. That's against Jedi code. She kind of plays it by her own rules, if you will. She's kind of one of those. Yeah,
there's definitely I don't know, shady aspects of her storyline throughout this show, and to just never bring it up when you're talking about clownish misunderstandings. I just what do you say about her? Like, what is your perspective on Green Woman? Because she's just she's right by the book. Everything she's doing is on the up and up, because I don't think that's true.
Yeah. I think she kind of addresses it towards the end, but not much. It doesn't go into it a lot, other than, kind of a fun bit of, I think, her interpretation of it. And I'm not sure if it's the correct or the intended interpretation. I don't know if there is a correct one. Everything's subjective. I
don't think it is. It's one of those whatever you feel shows. And I don't know if Star Wars fans are ready for that whatever you feel shit.
No, definitely not.
Exactly. And so anyway, they want you to think that this was this terrible tragedy that had happened there, even though it all happened through a series of clownish events. Osha and May meet again and they fight. Quimar and Sol meet and they fight. And it's really bad choreography.
I'm bearing the lead again. I'm predicting what she's going to say. This terrible tragedy that she references. Shortly, she's going to say about who's good and bad. The terrible tragedy is the good guys, Jedi, being responsible for somebody's death. So I don't know.
They did it in a way that really seems to be polarizing, because there are some people saying that the Jedi were completely justified in everything that they were doing. And then there's some people saying the witches were justified. I don't know if there's, I guess I was hoping for a more, I don't know, a different payoff, but I don't know if you could get kind of a more gray one, like one where it really is polarizing either way. Because I have seen both videos that, like, no, they're essentially like protecting these children, like they had every right to do it. She turned into, whatever she turned into, so he had every right to try and protect this child. And then, these guys had no right to just bust in and try and take these kids away. Like, how can the Jedi do that? So I don't know. I'm not saying it was the best executed one, but man, it is. People are seeing it from two different lenses for sure.
Right. And I think at the very least to get two different opinions out of your work is certainly not clownish. If you can tell a story and be ambiguous with it, and people have two sets of narratives that they are firm about, I think that's quite incredible. And it just seems like this, I mean, the whole set of 2000s television series, the best shows had, morally gray characters. We had anti-heroes for all of these, like Sopranos, Breaking Bad, stuff like that. And this show was trying to do that with Star Wars. And I don't understand when they complain about like quote unquote tragedy. And it's like, yeah, your good guy did something bad. So how do you equate that? I don't understand. It's strange. I don't think the show is great, but when like complaints like this happen, I'm like, wait a minute, it's way better than that.
Yeah. I think people don't want to, I think a lot of people are bringing their own expectations to this.
That's fair.
I got to be honest. I wanted to see something bigger that, got Torben to accept his ultimate fate. I guess he set the event off, but I don't know if that's something to, take the boon to tree juice for. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah. I got to be honest. I wanted more of a payoff for a lot of these things, but I don't know how I'd write it that people can see it different ways. I think, like you're saying, like a Tony Soprano type, which I'm not saying this is up there with the Sopranos.
Right. Nor am I.
Anything is, but like you don't want to see him do good necessarily. And that is kind of how Leslie Headland sold this to Disney was, okay, but we're going to see the High Republic from the Sith point of view as they're kind of working their way through. And I don't know that that's necessarily what we got in this season, but I think that's what they're teasing with the end of it. And hopefully would get into that without some, I guess, gimmick to the storytelling. I hope it would just, go on and tell it well, where I think it did well in a few areas in this. I think episode 5 was pretty awesome for me. I like a lot of parts of 6, but I guess there's a couple parts of the last episode I like too, but that's kind of it. Everything else to me was just kind of meh. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the stuff containing the witches, episodes 3 and 7, I was kind of, I could do without it, but I don't mind having it. But at the same time, like episodes 4, 5, 6, and 8, I felt were decent enough to neutralize things. But again, not at a thing where I'd say it's incredible. And I certainly wouldn't say it's bad in this way, where it's just, here's code words, just clownish writing, bad writing, good guy, bad guy. Okay, it's way more than that at the very least.
It is. Still, I'd be somewhat hesitant to recommend it to somebody. If they ask me, like, is it as bad as everyone's saying? I'd say, I don't think so. But I think that's the most glowing endorsement I could give it. Is, I don't think it's as bad as they're saying.
I think if it does end up getting a second season, I would tell somebody to maybe binge it, depending on how the second season goes. Because if it ends up failing, it's like, all right, don't worry about it. But if it's going somewhere, then all right, catch up so that you can watch this. But it's certainly not something that I'm like falling over my own feet to tell somebody to go watch it. That's for sure.
Yeah, same.
And look, I am a person who I really don't care about the choreography of fights usually. So if I'm noticing it, then it means it's bad. When Soul is fighting Quemar, where he...
I don't know exactly. I forgot I have hot corners. Apparently it went to my background and I didn't notice that while I was recording. So that was my dog. Luckily I didn't have my tax folder open or anything. But
the to be sorted folder.
Yeah. That's right. But yeah, I don't know. The fight choreography in this, she was saying that it's really bad. I can understand people having really strong feelings about it. They are trying to do, and one of the influences that Leslie Headland talked about was specifically Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. That seemed to me like the wire work that not only did they do in the first episode with Carrie Ann Moss, but then kind of this episode as well, when they kind of jump down from the bridge thing, whatever that thing was, they kind of glide down. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think it could have been edited a little bit tighter to make it not seem so slow, but I don't know. It is kind of a classic style that they were trying to mimic. They did that with a whole bunch of different movies and a whole bunch of different ways of kind of filming stuff. I think there were references to other movies that they were kind of trying to sneak in there. Yeah. Maybe that wasn't super effective for her, but I gotta say, I really liked the saber fight.
Right.
Parts of it are, but man, I really liked the actual choreography. It looks like that Manny Jacinto dude just like went to town with his choreography, and then I gotta give it up for Soul as well. I don't know. It just, I think these couple of fights that they ended up having in this were pretty epic. I can understand some of the influences that Leslie Headland said that she was bringing into this, like Kill Bill, and then she specifically called out a couple other samurai fight scenes that she wanted to say, including or wanted to show, including Hidden Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. If you don't like those, it definitely could seem out of place. It is kind of a fast-paced fight, and then all of a sudden, the slow gliding. But I think it was done pretty well.
Right. And in the world of Star Wars, not even, what they're like homaging, short of Duel of the Fates, the second best lightsaber fight scene is Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in Episode 4. And that's about visuals more than the actual fight choreography. It's about, Obi-Wan just decides to piece it out and turn into a force ghost, and it's about it's about like there's more to it than just the fight choreography. I don't know how important the visuals are to people, and I get it. I get that there are people who want to see a fight that looks like a fight, but this is storytelling. You have to have some sort of dramatic reason for things, and when you have Episode 5, what was the entire fight scene? Yeah, you see. Quimir, Stranger, whatever, just absolutely annihilating
Stranger.
Jedi. Yes.
Yeah, and the episode was Night. It was number 5.
Thank you. And if you set the precedent with how well he is there, you have to do something different to overcome that. And there's like raw emotions happening there, and the fact that I think the helmet is not a factor in that fight is a bit of an issue. So like
for some reason he doesn't bring his gauntlet for some reason. Like, right. I don't know why, but fair enough.
I think
bracer, I guess.
Right. To fall under wrestling terms, you don't want, like, you've set a precedent with your power, so you have to take some things away to make it seem plausible. And I think they did that. And again, I feel like there's way more than just what's going on in the fight. It's about emotion and drama and, the shifting of power and things like that. And something that will come up in a couple of minutes. If you're exclusively grading it on the fight choreography, I don't think it's awful.
Well, if you're going to say it's bad, it's really bad, and you don't ever notice it, but it's bad. What about it's bad?
Yes.
Like, can you tell me that part?
Yes. If I notice
I'm
it, that means
assuming
it's bad.
that's the wire work, but I could be wrong. To be honest, I didn't mind when May kind of did the wire work at the very opening episode. Mm-hmm. But when Trinity was like running up the stairs, it did look a little odd to me. But I guess I've never seen anyone force run up the stairs.
It's very Chinese cinema. It's very Crouching Tiger.
And it's what they were going for.
Right. Either you're into it or you're not. And that's fine. But when you consider Saul and what his background is, like, to say that it's bad, that's like whenever Donnie Yen's in a Star Wars movie, like, I'm not buying it. Oh, okay.
Withdraws his lightsaber and then reignites it, and withdraws his lightsaber, reignites it. And it's not like this is happening fast or anything. It's like Quimar will do a move, and then Soul's call will be to withdraw his lightsaber, and then it'll give you like a big epic moment of him drawing it out again, reigniting it. That's the word for it. And it's like they didn't know what to write for these fight scenes.
So that's what really sucks. So that is actually something that Leslie brought in from Legends. It's a fighting style called Tricotta that Quimir is supposedly versed in, and it involves turning the lightsaber on and off. Like, that's literally part of his fighting style. Mm-hmm. And Soul already kind of battled with him before, so he kind of is trying to learn his style or do something that matches it, seeing as how last time everybody using their standard style was just taken
obliterated
easily because he wasn't following their rules. So it looks like he's trying to kind of match his Tricotta style, which apparently is a famous style. I don't know too much about the fighting styles within Star Wars, but they made a big deal to say, like, hey, this is a specific one that we trained him in. It's consistent throughout this series, which cool.
Again, I'm more on the visual side of things. I would take it as kind of alleviating the tension and refocusing. Because like every time that happens, they're face to face and there's no real budge. So you release and then start over. That's what I took it as far as what they were trying to portray visually with the reigniting and resetting and all that. I think it's an emotional reset to kind of
I can definitely see that. There's a bunch of interpretations that are kind of like Chimere doesn't want to have his blade out that much, so he adopted this style because it allows him to not actually use the weapon as much as possible. I don't know. It is kind of an interesting interpretation. You're right. Like emotionally, it does kind of keep resetting it. Like, okay, and now we're going to go back to it.
Right.
It is different. I don't know. We've seen it a lot before where people are talking. You just have that hum going the whole time. That works. It's definitely Star Wars, but this is something a little bit different. And I think why Soul's doing it is to match Chimere's like kind of scene style of fighting that we witnessed in 5.
Yeah. I don't know. No,
sorry.
You're good. I just don't focus on that stuff so much. So I don't know. I don't watch boxing movies and think, oh, they don't even connect. It just troubles me.
He telegraphed that one. Also, they don't have their gloves right in front of their face.
There's no blocking in Rocky. What's going on here?
Well, you got to see Sly, man. They're paying for the face. But yeah, I mean, there is a certain amount of I guess what would you have to see? A certain amount of conceit that you're giving it, just it's only going to be so realistic.
Every story
it would
has
be awesome if they can make it even more. For sure.
Sure. I'm like a movie that has a bunch of fights in it. Warrior. I thought that was an incredible movie, and it ends with this, non-climax at the end, and the music swells and it's emotional, and that is how that movie about fighting comes to an end. It's about two brothers, a spoiler, who share a moment. And I cannot say this enough. All of this stuff, it's not exclusively about fighting, even though I understand that the title is Star Wars. It is not exclusively about fighting.
Fair enough. It is some of the fan favorite parts, but you're right.
Sure.
I would say the quotable moments aren't generally like the fighting, but fair enough. Everybody kind of made those noises or whatever. I'm sure everyone's made the lightsaber noises, but fair enough. I think it is about so much more than that. But I'd like to know what she hated so much about it. But.
Yeah, it's frustrating to like be so defiant and using superlatives and things. It's just like, all right, what about it is the worst thing ever? Why is this obviously bad? And I'm going to push back a little bit. I was more of a TIE fighter noise guy myself. I was more of a those sounds were
so then
awesome.
You probably liked this series more, apparently. Yeah.
Apparently.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Oh, and I guess we didn't mention that too, but when Soul is kind of bearing down on May, when the two ships are going after, you hear almost the same like tracking noise that you hear in the TIE fighters. Actually, it's kind of their lock-on noise. It's like a predecessor to that. It's really kind of cool what they do with the audio in this one. But sorry, forgot to talk about that. But I'm sure she'll talk about the fight scene a little bit more.
Illustrates a situation where Soul confesses that he is the one who killed Anastasia, the mother of these girls. Of course, you have to remember, though, that the reason he killed her is that he had been through a series of clownish events, seen that they were bad, that he thought that they were abusing their children, that they had been nothing but antagonistic towards the Jedi. They had gotten into the mind very seductively of one of their fellow Padawans, and the reason he...
Seductively? I thought it was kind of interesting. I hadn't seen that before where somebody kind of gets taken over, like their eyes turn completely black and then it seems like they're under control. I was really interested in that because I thought they kind of alluded to during that fight in 5. Yord says, it's like he's in my head. I thought maybe the stranger was also doing that stuff. We were going to see kind of this new Force ability, but instead it turned out very different in 7. I don't know. It was still interesting to see it depicted, but that kind of retroactively ruined some headcanon that like, maybe the stranger's doing this to them. I don't think there's any shot that he was doing that to the Jedi now. So I don't know.
I
agree with you, but I am led to believe, which certainly can be wrong, is that if Plagueis is the one that created May and Osha, however it was done, they could have learned that method from Plagueis. And again, I certainly can be wrong, but I haven't really closed the door on that just yet. That's something where it's just like, all right, we haven't learned how this is a thing, and that makes me interested to see if they're going to explain it. Again, this is how it parallels to not quite as good as, but it's a similar variation on how Lost did things, constant like Easter eggs and mystery boxes. Again, not as
for sure
well done, but I do think that there's something there that they haven't explained, and the word I don't know if I'm the only person who says things like this. I know I'm not, but the title of the show is The Acolyte, and it's an acolyte is somebody who's beneath. Do you have the definition of acolyte?
Sorry, I was still muted. I can get it for you. Wow, it really took over the internet. It doesn't want to give me just the definition, so let me go. Okay, it's a person assisting the celebrant in a religious service or possession, or an assistant or follower.
Right.
So,
and
yeah.
Both definitions, if you're going on the religious end, you could have that be in the witch angle, and as simply and to the point as May and Osha underneath. At first, the Jedi and then the stranger, and who the misdirection I think is that the stranger is actually the acolyte of Plagueis. So
that is definitely one thing that they could be doing with it.
Right.
I've heard a few different theories on it, so I don't know if I want to try and spoil anything for anybody. One of them sounds really interesting to me, and I hope they're going that route. But I'm assuming Plagueis is behind everything. That's kind of what it hinted at.
Right.
But in canon, there is also, so technically Plagueis shouldn't be born yet. They did move he would be between like 1 and 16 now, which he looked a lot older than that. So it sounds like they pushed back his birth date or whatever.
He could be anti-Lolly. He could be a really hideous looking 5-year-old.
So I'm pretty sure they moved back his birth date, but technically there was like a secondary like apprentice that was trained at the exact same time who came to the island to take him out. I'm not sure if they're going that route with this, or if they are talking about his first acolyte, which he did have a first apprentice before Palpatine. So they could be going either way with this. It's a little too early to tell, because that is kind of just the tease. But yeah, again, she wanted to use these two, Osha and Gaimar for the stepping stone to Plagueis. Mm-hmm. So it sucks. I wish we had gotten that this season, but I don't know. We'll see if there is ever a season where they go into that. But this is the first time that he's brought into canon. They did mention him in 3. There's the whole opera scene where they tell the legend of Plagueis the Wise. Yeah. But it's this is the first time we've seen him, even though there are Legends books, and he is seen in a few other things. That's kind of cool. I don't know if it's worth it, but she's trying to bring real things into this.
Right.
Perhaps not at the right time. But
I'm of the mindset that there's 2 possibilities, and I'm not going on like novels and all the other things. I'm just going on movies, and the story at the opera about Darth Plagueis the Wise that the Emperor tells Anakin. I took that to believe one of 2 things, that Palpatine was actually Darth Plagueis, just telling him that for, I don't know, trust's sake, or Palpatine was the one who killed Plagueis. And I feel like if you're going to go backwards and try to trace to the Emperor, why not go with the guy that taught the Emperor how to create and end life?
I think the consensus is pretty much that he is the one who did that. I think that's what most people believe, that he is the one who took him out in his sleep.
Sure.
But depending on how far back they're going to go, there are these things called maxichlorians, not midichlorians, but Tenebris, the dude who taught Plagueis, he was looking into how to extend his life, and he found out how to do it by putting like force into these. I don't know exactly what they are. They're kind of like cells that go into you. And basically he lives on in Plagueis as well. So who knows? Maybe Plagueis also did that and he lives on in Palpatine.
What is that story you just told me? What is that anecdote? What is that in? Is that a book?
I believe that's the Plagueis book, but then there's a secondary book that adds like a little bit more of like Tenebris to it.
Okay.
But yeah.
So
it is all legend stuff now.
Right.
None of it's canon.
I just, for the sake of visual, for the sake of, cinema, film, visual storytelling, how do you give me that story without it seeming way too technical?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how you do that.
And I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just, all right, how do you make that interesting?
Well, they contain your consciousness after death. Tenebris, who taught Plagueis, was looking to extend his lifetime, and apparently he found a way through this thing and lives on through Plagueis, and perhaps Plagueis did that to Palpatine, and then that explains how somehow Palpatine came back in the sequel series. Perhaps, I don't know. It's a way that you could tie them together, but I hated midichlorians, so bringing maxichlorians into it, not really for me. But
minochlorians,
yeah.
But I think a lot of some of the things that I have issue with a lot of the lore-heavy Star Wars fans is their complaints seem to be about, well, this has to match everything perfectly. And they're just not understanding that these things that are not popular in, mainstream culture, you have to sell a regular, Joe six-pack on this being interesting. And just, again, I'm not trying to be a dick, but if you could explain to me how that is visually engaging to get, Mark with his family of 5 to keep track with that thing, I'm dying to listen, but I don't know you can do that while having it be a subtle enough story.
People are used to drawing virus animations now, so maybe we could use that technology. I don't know. It seems like nobody wants to hear about that right now. But
right. So we had this discussion within the last 2 or 3 weeks that in the 90s, when movies wanted to show you things happening in a computer, they had all these animations that just anybody who's used a computer and hacked into something will tell you it's just like prompts. There's no like visuals and whooshing and all this other shit. But for the sake of cinema, they have to give you something to look at to, I don't know, to engage the viewer with what's happening. And yes, is that really what happens? No. But again, back to contrivances. For the sake of storytelling, you've got to keep it engaging somehow.
For sure. And the second you ask me that, it's like, I have no clue how you put that into visuals.
And again, I understand people think a lot of those things, but you have to remember that, the people at Lucasfilm, they want a lot of people. They want, normies to watch this shit, not, forgive me, not people who will buy every single thing that they pump out, and books, and like you said, midichlorians aren't very popular with the rest of Star Wars watching public.
Don't think they've ever visualized those or anything like that. Right. There's just the counter and they're like, oh, these are off the charts. Yeah. So fair enough. I don't know how you'd even bring maxichlorians into it, but
yeah,
it's a way to live on, and I guess that would be a way to explain stuff that was unexplained in the sequel series. But do they really want to do that, or just kind of write that off? It depends.
I'm trying to think of anything I've watched where I watched, mind you, not read, where some sort of element to say how strong somebody is was shown on a screen, whether it be how high your sperm count is, how high your testosterone is. Like, there's nothing that I can think of where that element was strong enough for me to have a visual associated with it.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm struggling to come up with something. Maybe like Look Who's Talking Now, but closest I can think of, but it was relevant to the plot. But yeah, I can't think of anything else.
And even then,
other than that, it's always just a paper with a number.
Yeah, and even in Look Who's Talking, when the baby's in the womb, it's how does he know English? How's it like if you want to get
how does he have such a great voice? I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's just you've got to give some rope for the ability to storytell and visually do so. So I don't know. It just feels like some of these, I don't know, some of the bars that are being put up by Star Wars fans, they're just impossible to reach. Just impossible to reach.
For sure. It's an awesome fan base. Like they are passionate about it. There are people who spend thousands on like these amazing replicas or actual props. That's awesome. But man, if you cross them, it definitely seems like they also have they're very passionate. I'll put it that way. The passion goes both ways towards liking and hating things.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately killed her as she was being antagonistic to him, and she blew up into this big black ink butterfly after she was being antagonistic to him, and he thought he was protecting May. It was like a knee-jerk reaction. So that's what happened. So it's really hard to take any of this seriously and blaming him for this horrible event when it's like it all.
But that is kind of a similar, like a somebody pulling out a gun and being shot. If they
That's
have
kind of where I'm going.
Okay.
I was thinking like the cop who grabbed, the gun instead of the taser or something along those lines. Like there's accidental shootings all the time, or somebody kind of jumps the gun. They assume somebody has like a different intent than they did. They were going for their wallet, something along those lines. It seems like one of those moments because right after that, Anastasia says, I was going to let her go. So I don't know exactly what she was doing. It did seem weird. She was becoming the smoke, and it seemed like she was taking some smoke from May. Mm-hmm. It's a little unclear. Like that part, it definitely doesn't hold your hand on. I don't know what the hell was happening there. Mm-hmm. It looks like they were taking over somebody maybe because of what happens later in the episode, but it's a little ambiguous as to what exactly was happening there.
Right. I wouldn't use the word definitive for what's happening there.
Yeah, for sure.
Happened through clownish writing. But Soul, who's just written this entire time as this overly emotional character who just wanted to protect these girls, but just clownishly overly emotional, admits that he was the one who killed Anastasia and that he went along with the Jedi's plan to cover it up, or at least some of the Jedi. Is so.
So if you had a secret that just totally went against everything you stand for, would you just roll off of it like nothing, or would you be a bit emotional about it?
And she's right. Like that is what they've been showing the whole time, is that Soul is emotional. Like he isn't in control of this. When the other guys start getting taken out in the last, in episode 5, he starts fighting like the Sith. He's fighting very angrily. Like it's not a well-oiled, well-executed, choreographed movement anymore. It seems like it's striking out of anger like we've seen before. I think he's not supposed to be in control of it. His character really, really mirrors Chimere, actually, and it's kind of strange. They both are really desiring some sort of apprentice, some sort of acolyte. That's what he was doing on Brandok back then. That's what Manny Jacinto, the stranger, is doing now. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of parallels that they're kind of showing with this, and then the whole you don't have to put your emotions in check. Manny has the stranger is doing it a different way. I don't know. I don't know that they executed all of this really well, but I can see things that they were doing that I don't think she's giving them credit for.
Right. Go ahead.
Just the parallels between the characters and the motivation and everything.
I do think there's something there. Whether or not it's enough to kind of guide you, up for debate. But the one thing we know about Anakin from the prequels was he basically annihilated a bunch of Jedi because he was in love. And, what kind of good force doesn't want people to love one another? Like that's something that's against Jedi. And to think that just the murder aspect is, on Jedi, it helps ask a question like, why do you have to be pure and not experience love? It's just opening a door to something like, here's a human emotion, and it's not perfect, but how do you overcome this if you're a Jedi, a priest, a rabbi? All of these things that it's not new to entertainment. We have plenty of stories like that. But again, is it achieved perfectly? No, but I certainly think it's a bit more creative than clownishly written. I wouldn't use that terminology for any of this.
Yeah, the shoes seemed appropriate sized. I don't know. They took some big swings, and I don't know they connected with everything. Right. But I like some of what they're doing with this characterization and like showing you a different side to these. So we know that like the High Republic, they were completely in charge of everything, and everything is a peaceful time. This is the end of that somehow gets it to, the Senate is in control of the Jedi, and they're kind of just an enforcement wing of the Senate that has to answer to the Senate, like we see in the prequels. So something has to happen to make them lose power at some point. That could be interesting to see. I kind of like some of the drama that was brought in by, I can't remember his name, but the one senator at the end who's kind of, it seems like he's not buying the whole Jedi thing. And he's, granted, the dialogue might not have been the best, but again, I guess there's kind of a precedent of that in Star Wars. George wasn't exactly known for the snappy dialogue, all the hatred of the sand and all.
Sure. I mean, Marvel Civil War, what is it? Watchmen. Who watches the Watchmen? Like, these are things we've certainly seen before. And this is just, again, is it entirely creative? No. Is it something brand new? No. But it's an interesting nugget to put into the Star Wars universe. Like, ooh, how do you do this without experiencing these feelings? And yes, he experiences those feelings, and that's what makes him unqualified to be a Jedi, because he has remorse like that. I don't know. Visuals and storytelling is about emotion, and I would prefer that, not some robot. Like, I just don't understand what some people are watching content for.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of the cycles as well. I think she touches on this in the future, but it is also the fact that, he was kind of put into this very young and kind of told this is what you have to do. And then he kind of did the exact same thing for Osha. And, she was supposed to control her emotions, but what got her out of it wasn't that she doesn't have force abilities. It was that she couldn't control her emotions. Mm-hmm. They kind of lay that out there pretty quick and don't really go back to it. I think it could have been presented in like a more impactful way, but it really kind of mirrors kind of a lot of this that's going on. And I think she's going to talk about it in just a second, but it kind of, it makes the motivations a little bit murky. And again, the not being in control of your own emotions. I think it's a huge theme that goes throughout this series.
Right.
Apologetic, but Osha, overcome by her grief by finding out these events, puts Soul in a force choke. And it's a very slow process where she's just gradually choking him, and we're supposed to really zoom in on this moment, and she's just choking him, and you wonder if she's actually going to kill him or not, because this takes so long. And she does, and she chokes him, and he's dead even as he's apologetic. This person who felt a bond with her, even though it was really weird that they made it so quickly, but this person that she had a bond with,
so quickly. He trained with her for 10 years. I don't know. Maybe she means like in the beginning when he first like picked her up after the fire. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt. That's probably what she was referring to.
There's some portions, like she talked about the choking taking so long, and I would have used the word tension for that, because She
Well,
even says, "Don't say anything, please be quiet."
I was going to say there's
like
two things that she glosses over, and that's where she says, like, stop talking. And then she goes on again, and you can kind of see, granted, maybe a different actress would have shown you visually a little bit more of it, but you can see the anger growing. That is why they then start doing a close up on her. But to leave that out would be like, just out of nowhere, she just starts force choking him. She's trying to get him to stop talking. She really doesn't want him to kind of keep saying these words that he's saying. And he's not exactly saying the right things. He's not saying like, you're right, I take full responsibility of this. I never should have done this. Instead, he was justifying it, saying like, I thought I was doing the right thing. And it's like, don't we always?
Right.
I don't know.
I think
very rare do you think you're doing the wrong thing.
Plus, she had just found out that Saul was responsible for that. So it's fresh in her head, and she's trying to do the right thing, or trying to let, like you brought up earlier, it lets her emotions get the best of her too much. And Saul, who's been sitting with this for years, has just been left with these feelings, and he's trying his best to explain what years of, self-doubt he's had, and it's not helping. And
Sure.
To say it takes long, I think is really not understanding what's happening in that shot.
Yeah. Yes. I agree. It just the tension. I think it was done really well. I don't think it was too long or anything like that. I've definitely seen some scenes that felt like they were. This one to me, I don't know. It just had so much emotion behind it. I guess it's really subjective, to each their own. But yeah, for me, it worked, and it didn't seem overly long.
Mm-hmm.
Has choked to death, and they want you to think that this was the first time somebody has actually used a force choke, because they have to take the lore, and they have to make it about them. They have to make it that these are the characters that really matter and are doing all this stuff. Because when do they say they want you to think that this is the first time that someone used a force choke?
I have no idea. The only thing I can think is that, we're not aware of Sith. Like, Sith haven't been around in like a millennia, but I don't think Vader came up. I could be wrong, but I just assumed it was a Sith tactic that, Jedi don't usually use the Force to attack, but Sith, they're not bound by that rule. So of course they could Force push you into objects. They could use the Force to, hit you with a percussive force if they need to. But yeah, I don't know. I was going to ask you, did you get the impression that this is the first time a force choke has ever been done? I think they kind of want to give you the ambiguity of like, who's doing that to him? Like, they kind of have her hand hidden for a moment, but I think it's more, is it Osha? Is it May? Is it Chimere? Who's doing? Oh, okay. It's Osha.
Right.
I think it was more like that reveal, other than like the reveal of the first time this has ever been done.
Yeah. I don't know where that description comes from. I don't know that. I don't know what about that makes you think this is the first time this has ever happened. Like, I don't know what you're watching that you've taken that in. Please show me from your perspective, because I'd love to see it that way. But again, the show is called The Acolyte. We know that Plagueis is around, and who knows who he's taught what to. So
he is known as the Wise. He was known that way because he developed different techniques.
Right.
But I guess, Osha isn't taught this, so it is the first time she does it, and it doesn't seem like she was taught that move. So
what if she is? I mean, again, in this episode, they talk about the two of them being one, and you're led to believe that, or at least it's up for interpretation, that Plagueis is responsible, or the parent to Osha May. So perhaps it's in the gene pool to have the force choke. Like, to speak so definitively one way or another, if anything I could say about this series is that it's not really just a straight line. It's certainly, well, what do you think? And I guess
very murky.
Right. But I don't think it's ever been like definitive about this is the first time. But
I mean, it's bringing a bunch of things to the screen for the first time, but they are a lot of things that were borrowed from other things, like the whole you must kill somebody without using a weapon thing. Like, that is the final task that Vader was given in the comics to earn his I guess, apprenticeship to be a Darth. Like he had to actually take someone out that way. And the person that he was taking out, they were doing the bearish vow, the meditation thing. So it's kind of interesting. These things aren't invented for this show, but they haven't been brought into canon before. So I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know that they were done the best that they could have done. From what I've seen in the comic, it was a lot more effective. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of interesting. It is a nod to a whole bunch of different parts of canon or parts of Legends that aren't canon yet. So it's kind of bringing them in for the first time. But everyone's happy with that.
I don't. I'm gonna regather my thoughts. Thinking I'm editing this. What was the last thing she said?
Good question. Let me go back. Like,
take the lore and they have to make it about them. They have to make these are the characters that really matter and are doing all this stuff because Osha said earlier.
So she says that they have to make it about them. And one of my gripes with this show is I don't really feel invested with any of these characters. And even though I don't think that's the case, this is a prequel and you need to be invested somehow in this story. I don't think the show is making you feel it's about them. And I think that would be the right thing to do to give us some sort of stakes and investment in this series. I don't think it was done here, but you kind of need to have some reason to be invested in the series. So while I don't think it is making it all about them, it is a prequel. You have to have some sort of reason to go back to it. It's one of my gripes but for a different reason. I feel like they don't make these characters important enough, but I don't feel like they make it about them, which is I don't know.
I don't want to like mind read her, but perhaps the thing that she's bringing into this is kind of that whole, they're rewriting the Anakin thing. Like, since he's not the first person that the Force like brought into being, that, these two people are created. That's kind of retconning the whole Anakin being the first chosen one thing. So they're making this all about them. So maybe she's thinking the same thing about this Force choke thing, that since it's the first time we see it, we don't see Osha being trained. They're making it all about her inventing it. I think that's about as charitable as I can be with the interpretation. I guess I could see that, but yeah, I disagree. I think, she was overwhelmed with her emotions and she used Force, which she had an adeptness with, in a very non-Jedi way. I don't know. I liked it. I don't think that she necessarily invented the Force choke, but I can see if you've got Force powers, doing something like that. Like it just seems natural if you're not a Jedi and bound by you can't attack with the Force.
Yeah, and Anakin is the chosen one to bring balance to the Force, which actually means his children. May and Osha we don't know what the hell their story is. And again, if they're products of Plagueis, who knows? Again, it's really strange to come to conclusions like that, because I think if this keeps going, we're going to hear more about, why these things are there. But that's such a petty reason to because Anakin was supposed to be first. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like,
I haven't heard her make that argument, but I know I've heard a whole bunch of people do that like they're changing it to make it all about these characters as opposed to like the classic ones. And it's like, I guess, but like you mentioned, this is a different time. So why would you bring up characters that haven't been around yet?
Yeah.
Which fair enough, I guess.
What is being changed?
I guess Anakin being the first one who is the Immaculate Force conception.
Do they say he's the first one?
It's assumed, but no, okay. I don't believe it says it anywhere. It's just, again, kind of that conversation from 3, where it's kind of implied that perhaps Anakin is what Plagueis and Palpatine brought in. But there is also another canon that's basically saying that actually they kind of failed and then the Force fought back, and that's what created Anakin. So even then it's a little murky and it's not really clear.
They can jump to conclusions on something implied with Anakin, but if we're implying things here, it's a travesty. Do I have that right?
It could be.
Okay.
I don't know how quickly the Force would have to act to still be a response to it, but perhaps these are the events that the Force had to go ahead and I don't know. I guess there's no Palpatine here, and it's like 100 years before that, so probably not the events that he's talking about. But I don't know, because it's all so murky. We don't actually have any sort of explanation for any of this.
Plus, what I understand of the Force is it's, essentially oxygen. And, if you have good Force, bad Force, whatever. If that story about Anakin bringing balance to the Force, which is actually Luke who ends up doing it, although you could argue at the end of Return of the Jedi that Anakin throwing...
Yeah, he went back to the light.
Right.
I don't know. I've heard it interpreted a bunch of different ways.
That could be a Jedi story about Anakin, but this whole thing with Plagueis and Chimere and May and Osha, this could be something from the Sith, the dark side of the Force. And I'm okay enough if you want to do something like that and have that play out, fine. I didn't know that, we were associating Anakin with Christ. I didn't think that was a thing.
It's always kind of been there since the prequels. It's, there was no father. Okay. It's always kind of been implied, but yeah.
Okay.
That midichlorians kind of rubs some people the wrong way, but
yeah, it's
accepted now. That's what, 99. So it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the episode that how could somebody kill a Jedi without a lightsaber? And, in that vision she saw at the beginning, she thought it was May attacking Sol, but it was her. And so she has killed him. And it's really terrible to watch. And then her lightsaber, this is not how it works. And this drove me absolutely nuts. The lightsaber that Sol was using and that she uses, it gradually shifts from a blue crystal to a red crystal. And as it's drawn out, it transforms into red. That is not how it works. In Star Wars, there has been a lot of lore about how lightsabers are constructed and how a lightsaber, you would have to go through so much work to get it to change into red, as Darth Vader went through a lot of work to change a lightsaber red.
Okay.
You can't, it's not that you just become Sith and then your lightsaber magically transforms into red. This is
okay, so this is
she's right.
Okay. I had help this case, because I
So prior to 2017, red kyber crystals were synthetic kyber crystals, but then in 2017 they retconned everything, and no, actually what you have to do is you have to bleed a kyber crystal. So you infuse it with so much anger that it actually turns it to red, and then you can actually infuse it with, now I'm blanking, I want to say it's love, and you can actually get a white saber out of that. But it has changed, and in the Vader comics, he goes through huge trials to actually bleed his saber and to build up the amount. He actually tries it like 3 different times and fails, and then finally gets it on the last time. And it takes him a long time to actually do this. Leslie Headland did talk to, I believe it's Pablo Hidalgo is the dude who's in charge of the continuity now in the canon. And then they ran this by him, and he said that was acceptable. It doesn't break canon. So they're okay with it, and they are the ones who okayed how kyber crystal bleeding happens. But she is leaving out a couple different things. So again, May has never been able to control her emotions. She just found out about this. This is literally the saber that was used to kill her mother. She's touching it right now. It is also piercing her skin. It's not perfect, but they didn't have like an extra week where she could be working on that saber, trying to get it to infuse so that she bleeds the crystal. And then you get kind of a cool visual where somehow the saber switches from blue to red.
Yeah, it's not instant. She doesn't turn it on.
It does the fading thing. Right. And that's when she realizes just how much anger is propelling her. I don't know. I have kind of the same problems with the Obi-Wan and Vader fight from the Obi-Wan show. Mm-hmm. It looks cool visually, but I don't know. Everything that just doesn't work for me with that series it just doesn't feel like it's worth it just to get this kind of cool fight scene that's lit by the sabers, and it's really moody. It feels like this is kind of one of those things, like visually this would look really cool. It's technically not how the new canon should be doing the crystal bleeding, but I don't know. I think again, how do you show that visually? Like,
I thought they did. I thought they showed a close up of her hand, and it looks like she's like getting poisoned in her hand, holding the thing, and that is enough for me because I've never seen that in Star Wars before. Somebody having like an infection in their hand, and then the saber slowly starts changing color. I like new things. I don't know. Maybe I'm weird.
They've basically only done it in like two other, like they did it in the comics. Yes. Then there's a game which I have not played, but I've seen the animation where they do that one kind of fast, but it does this big kind of explosion of energy. Like everyone gets force pushed away from it. Apparently this didn't do that. It just kind of, fizzled the blade into a different color. I think visually it looks really cool and you get the idea. And then that's when she truly realizes just, how much anger she has presents up. And again, this being the blade that killed her mother, I don't know. Perhaps there's more to this than
right. I'm old enough to remember.
Credit for.
I'm old enough to remember that when Darth Maul first showed up with the double-sided lightsaber, that people were like, "Wait, why didn't Darth Vader have one of those?" And it's like, all right, yeah, you're right, but this is really neat. Can we just have fun new things without going too down the rabbit hole with it? I mean,
yeah,
fair. Like I get it, fair enough. But how do you make this new and enticing without introducing?
Yeah, and how do you represent that? And what exactly do you do? Do you do a montage of her like trying to be angry at the crystal or whatever? I guess you could have a reveal that like she succeeded next season, but I don't know. I think visually it kind of works, and then it does bring Kyber crystal bleeding into canon. That's how you change a saber, but
which I don't think we've seen.
No, we have not. Not in real canon. It is in the comics and it is in one of the video games, but I am not up to date on all of the cartoons or all the animated series, so it might be there, but yeah, this is the first time in live action we've seen it. So it's different.
I mean, you could have an issue with it, but I don't know if they sent this message out that, hey, all that stuff before Disney bought it, it's not canon.
And this all would have been after Disney bought it. Disney is the one who kind of created the whole Kyber crystal bleeding thing. Right.
So I don't know. They're implementing something that they've done. You can not like it. Sure. I understand that. Trust me. But it's not like this is not the way that things go. Okay.
It's upsetting some people. It's not the way they wanted it, which fair enough. I wanted different things from this series too. But,
yeah. Wanting different doesn't mean this is offensively the worst thing in history.
Well, if it wasn't for the clownishness,
Fair enough.
Like it was written by somebody who has only casually watched Star Wars, never really cared for it, and then this is what they wrote. That is exactly what this is. Somebody who does not have a deep understanding of the lore or even any real understanding. They just casually watched Star Wars once, and this is what they thought could happen. That is not how it works. But here's what is so bad about it. This lore-breaking stuff is one thing. The clownish writing is another thing, but Osha has done something evil. Her response to finding out that this person has lied to her and done all this stuff is to pretty brutally and heartlessly kill him. But the show wants you to be on her side. The show wants you to think that she is the good guy as she's becoming a Sith. Okay. The Sith are the good.
So good guy. Again, I'm going back to visuals. If we were good and bad right now, visually you would think I'm the villain based on how I'm lit and how everything. So
and
visually,
the way that I'm speaking, you'd think it's me.
Visually, I mentioned it earlier that the costumes, there was a change. I don't know if they want you to think that she's good. I don't know how, and I don't think they brought up Sith at all in this series.
Is there one? So Manny Jacinto, the stranger, he says, your kind would refer to me as a Sith, or might refer to me as a Sith. So that's kind of it. And then Coyote Mundi, when he's in that one scene, they do bring up that, Sith, there haven't been any reports of Sith. It's kind of a callback to his, prequel thing of we haven't seen Sith have been extinct for over a millennia. And then that was the part that was supposed to, make this all not work as well, because they would have known about it if they knew that there was some issue with Jedis. So we kind of knew that everybody was going to be taken out, anyone who had any knowledge of this. And, I would argue that there is this huge cover up at the end. Is there anyone in this series that is supposed to be seen as good? Can you think of like one person?
No.
I mean, there's even theories out there that like there is a Darth Basil, the the cute little I think it's Tenian creature, that he is actually pulling some strings behind the scenes.
Quite the contrary. I think this show does not want you to think good or bad. It's if anything, I would say this is the morally gray television series for Star Wars.
I think it is trying to show you that, like, people can have all these justifications or all these self-justifications for a bunch of things. And, Soul had justifications for his actions, but that didn't necessarily make it easier for Osha or May. Both of them harbored a ton of resentment for that. And they've got their own motivations for this, like what she did to Soul. But she seems okay with it. But I don't think it's saying that it's good.
Yeah, the Sith being extinct, I would have seen that as a parallel to episode 4, when the Jedi or ancient religion, it's very similar. So I don't understand holding this series to like objective things when it's very, very fuzzy.
For sure.
But it's certainly not. You got to feel good about this. You got to feel bad about this. Sith, Jedi, good, bad. I just don't get that from this series at all. Like if that's what your complaint is, then I don't know why you dislike this, because it's definitely not that.
I can't think of a character that is good in this. Like I'm really struggling to come out. Maybe Mog, the guy who maybe is Vernestra's Padawan. He's really lanky. He kind of answers the distress call. It didn't show him do anything bad or anything like that. So maybe that dude's all good.
What about Yolandi?
Oh, Jecki. It didn't actually show her do anything. Okay. Jecki seemed pretty good. Mm-hmm. She was trying to get control over her emotions. She did, she was just a Padawan, but, she did seem to get quite angry when a lot of her compadres got cut down.
Yeah,
so
she did something sneaky, I think, in one of the first couple of episodes, but I don't know. Is it by the Jedi book? No. But would I say it's bad? No.
But I mean, I'm not saying that this puts the Jedi that the Jedi are the bad guys. Like, right. I think it just, you can see from Soul's position, from the Indara's position, why she would kind of do the cover up in the first place. From Vernestra's position, why she would do the cover up now, with the Senate breathing down their neck and not wanting to lose the Jedi's stake and being like above the Senate instead of having to answer to them. You can see the justifications. I don't know if that makes them all evil. They're definitely conflicted, again, kind of gray characters who are definitely doing bad things, but I don't know if just doing a single bad deed makes you horrible. I don't know. It is strange. But again, like, Vernestra has this weapon that apparently Jedi are not supposed to have, and it is the purple color, which is, kind of red and blue. It seems like she is kind of like the Mace Windu type. I don't know. It is interesting. This series is a lot of gray. I wish it was a little bit better.
Yeah. But again, if your complaint is it's about making you feel for the or root for being bad, I really I can't imagine finding that to be the thing with this series, because it's about good people doing bad things and vice versa. And, maybe there's no such thing as a good person or a bad person, just people who do things at different times that, define them for their life or, a certain amount of time. I
think the pitch was the High Republic from the Sith point of view. I don't know that we necessarily got that, but this is trying to kind of not tell you that they are correct, but kind of show you what their motivation is. And okay, now we're going to get a deeper look into the Sith. I'm sure next season, it seems like it would be all about that.
And I need to clarify and reiterate that I don't think the show is that good. I think it misses in quite a few places.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to get a second season.
Right,
but if it
did, in contrasting messages and gripes like this, while I don't think it's great, I certainly don't think any of this is. I don't want to say right. I mean, your opinion's your own, and art is subjective. But considering if those gripes that she's brought up so far were the only things that I had issues with, I would think the show is incredible.
For sure. That doesn't seem like enough to. I disagree with a lot of those that are said, but I have like a whole list of real gripes I have about this.
Yeah.
And it's all subjective. So if that's the way she feels about it, like, hell yeah. It's obviously not for her. I would say, I guess these videos are making quite a splash on her channel. So she might want to watch the second season for that. But I'm assuming she wouldn't like where this is going.
I'm not hating player, by the way.
For sure.
If you're making money, make that money. But it doesn't seem like it makes sense as far as the gripes are concerned. But make that money.
Good guys, according to this show. Forget the moral ambiguity thing that they said that they were trying. No, they 100% want you to believe that Osha becoming a Sith is a good thing. But it's like, these are evil characters. The Sith are supposed to be evil, and they are. And you want me to be invested in these tearful breakups and rooting for these characters as they become evil. And here's what is so despicable about all of this. If you've ever watched Star Wars, if you grew up watching Star Wars and you understand these very simple things, the Jedi and the light side are good, the Sith and the dark side are bad. They are evil. Leslie Headland apparently...
That felt like a little bit of contradictory criticism that like this gray thing that they said that they're doing. Listen, it needs to be black and white. I think they tried to do a gray thing. Like they're not saying you have to love these guys, but it is showing you what compelled them to that side.
Right.
Which I don't know exactly what I'd write to do that. I don't know if this was successful for me to like fully buy in, but it's an interesting look at like what could drive somebody to that if they were completely lied to for like 10 years and the person that they thought was there to rescue them actually brought this all about. I don't know. It is a reaction to it for sure.
Right. I think if you want to see these people are good, these people are bad over and over again, that sounds tired to me. And if anything that Lucasfilm, Disney is doing, they're chasing trends. And the 21st century in television alone has been more about anti-heroes and morally gray characters. And think of any great television series, there's characters that are morally gray, if not in the series, leading the series. So
think of any movie other than the very first one, other than episode 4, A New Hope, where there isn't morally gray characters. Like 2, we've got Lando. Well, hell, even in the first one, you have Han Solo. Like, he does shoot first. Like he's not exactly, the light side. He reluctantly joins and then, kind of earns his place there. But you've got Lando in the next one. You've got Vader and Jedi. Like there's some ambiguity to the light and the dark side. And then once you get to the prequels where you have Anakin's whole journey, like, I mean, I get it. He is going to the dark side, but they do show you this kind of morally questionable action. And, he still does some very questionable things while still being accepted as a Jedi. It's interesting.
If you're understanding Star Wars as, with all due respect to this definition, this like kindergarten school child's understanding of Jedi good, Sith bad, and that's all there is. How do you get the conflict of Anakin from being Jedi to Sith without crossing waves at all? This is storytelling, and conflict is something that anybody who tells you how to write will tell you. That's what's interesting to people is, something that doesn't make sense. It goes against everything you would think. But
for sure, and it seems like, and yeah, I couldn't say it better. I will just stumble over my words. I completely agree with you, man.
Apparently watched Star Wars once, saw that metaphor, and saw, oh, the Sith allow you to be emotional. They allow you to give into your fear and anger. If you're a Sith, you can kill the people you don't like. If you're a Sith, you can have relations with evil Jedi and people that you are attracted to. Like like Leslie Headland
What's an evil
watched
Jedi?
Star Wars, and her interpretation.
Well, I guess it might be like the Knights of Ren, possibly. I'm not sure. I assume that would be Sith, but
yeah, but
I'm not sure.
Sith are bad, Jedi are good, and then she also said,
true, and then she said evil Jedi. Well, it's not confirmed that Chimere is actually Sith. He just said your people would, or your kind would refer to me, might refer to me as
non-binary.
Sith. So.
He said, your people might call me this. So he probably doesn't identify as Sith, but God forbid if he said it that way.
There's some theories about that character, and I have no idea. There's some, so we don't know if he has a Darth name. If so, there's some theories as to which Darth name he has. And then if it's not that, perhaps he goes and founds his own thing. And, Disney has teased it before.
Nice.
There is a certain theme that they keep playing every time that he's been on. So perhaps that is foreshadowing to he's going to start his own order or something. So it's really hard to say, but perhaps he would be a dark Jedi without being Sith. It's hard to say.
Some light motif.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Interpretation of the Sith being when you give into your fear and anger and lust, like she saw that as a good thing. This is a show that just says evil is good. Giving into your emotions, your hate and your fear, and your your sexual lust, as Queemar represents for Osha. All of that is good. And Leslie Headland thinks that is good, and that is the entire point.
I don't know.
Sorry, I was just talking while muted. It's weird that she's doing this mind reading. We're saying that Leslie is trying to say this. I don't know that she is. That's definitely her interpretation of it. But yeah, I don't think we're supposed to see Osha as good, and she's right in this. It's like, no, she did a really horrible thing, but so did Soul, and it seems to be this cycle.
Right. Everybody's done. Again, I don't know how many times I could say it. Good people doing bad things, bad people doing good things, and in it does feel like allegories to certain religious groups. Certain people have to be chaste, but it's human to have those emotions, those feelings, and the conflict.
They're above it.
Yeah, right. The conflict within a series or anything like that, for that matter, is how you deal with it. How do you balance it? Are you able to overcome it? And I don't think this series wants you to think good, bad. If anything, I think this series is really ambiguous about a lot of things. So I don't know how you can definitively say this series wants you to think this and this.
I think so too. And it kind of shows you that whole, the symbol of like I guess, do they call them Night Sisters of Brannock? But the witch cult thing, it's kind of that yin yang symbol. It's kind of showing that like even in the light side, there is some dark, even on the dark side, there is some light. I think that is a motif in this, that, it isn't so cut and dry. It's not black and white, so to speak.
And if the witches are, what are they? Because they're using some hybrid of the Force, right? Or some magic version of it?
It's magic with a K. And again, they use a lot of the lines from... Again, it's very similar to a Palpatine line where he says, like, some would call it unnatural. That's also what they end up saying. The Mother Anastasia says that line. There's some interesting lines that they kind of borrow, but we don't really touch on that. And I think that was all kind of for this conceit of this mystery, and I don't think it quite paid off. So I'm hoping we get more explanations in the future. But again, perhaps Plagueis was directing all of this, and we'll get explanation in the next season, should there ever be one. But
yeah, I think second guessing can certainly. I mean, it certainly can happen now. That's something that I would say is an issue that I have with the series. Is it kind of leaves a lot to be. Again, I'm not saying it's like Lost, but a lot like the mystery box, the
Got a lot of mystery boxes.
Yeah, Easter eggs, and it's just like, all right, well, if you don't pay this off, this is shitty. But I don't think like their plan was to just do this and okay, we're all done.
I don't think so. Apparently, like the first draft of it didn't even have like the stranger character in it. It was just kind of the Brannock thing, and I don't know. Quimir was supposed to be kind of a second season thing, and then he was just an end of the season thing, and then they ended up moving him way further up in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what this would have been without that, because gotta be honest, he's the only part that kind of interests me in this entire thing. He's the only character that I kind of want to know more about and what he's about. But
I'll tell you the one thing that, like, if I have a genuine positive, like the closest thing to my mouth on the ground, it was that 5th episode where he was just ruthless.
For
if
sure.
he wasn't in the series, I don't know how I'd feel about it.
And just the way that he's toying with the Jedi, specifically Soul, but Soul and Jackie. I don't know. I kind of dug that. And then the way he's able to just like disappear from them, he does the same thing in this episode towards the end, where or I guess not towards the end, but him and Osha are racing to get to the inside the building. I'm not sure what that is, if he has some special force effect or if he can do the smoke thing. Like, I'm not sure. There's a lot that it kind of doesn't tell you exactly. I kind of dig that, but I hope they don't leave that as a mystery box where we never know what the hell's going on, and he's just doing the Batman disappear when you're not looking thing.
Yeah, it's something that I have like a question mark for a score. But if this turns out to not be finished, or this is it'll be an issue. But it's one of those things where it's like pending, rating pending.
Yeah, for sure. But even there, I'm not sure that you're supposed to side with anyone. He just intrigues me. I guess it feels like there's more to this character than almost any other character in this. So
I
don't know. I just want to know his mystery, but probably we'll never get that now.
Point of the Acolyte. Can you see why I say that this is the worst thing ever produced with the Star Wars label under it? Through the character assassinations and the bad writing and the boring shows and all that, the main theme of Star Wars, good versus evil, very simple reason why Star Wars was so effective, had kept intact. That is completely spitefully spit on and destroyed with this episode of The Acolyte, if you at all accept this as actually...
Wait.
I got one question for you. Do you think the overall message of Star Wars is good versus evil? I mean, it's a theme that there's the light side and dark side, but I don't know that it's just straight up good versus evil. There is kind of the whole hero's journey, which is I would argue that the first trilogy is kind of Luke's hero's journey, and he's got to make it all the way up that mountain, and he almost takes the wrong path at the end. I like the way that they did that, but he's able to kind of bring it around and bring his father back by not going the route of anger. I don't know. I'm not sure that it is just straight up good versus bad. I think it's
really reductive to call it that. I think there's, like, again, you have characters in every single of the trilogies where they've started out as one and kind of finished as another. Like, you need some sort of transitionary thing to have somebody good to go bad, or vice versa. So I don't think those are the two only things about it. I think there's many layers. To just say it's about good and evil is like, I don't know if it's
an element.
What I would say. Yeah,
for sure. But I mean, like, almost anyone that has, like the cave or wherever you go to experience it, it's not you versus evil. It's generally you versus yourself. You're kind of, again, trying to get to that. It seems like, it's definitely that hero's journey. And that's a part of it, is that reflection period. But I don't know. I can't think that, Luke going into the cave and bringing with him, or he will encounter what he brings with him. I can't remember exactly how Yoda phrases that, but I can't see that just being good versus evil. That there is, a person versus themselves in there, and there's so many ways that you can kind of interpret that theme. I don't take that as just straight up good versus evil.
Right.
But
I think
it's an element.
Yes. There's certainly many elements that I would have said. Class structure is something Um, a ragtag group trying to fight the government, whatever. Um,
Hmm.
there are a bunch of things, but I certainly wouldn't just sift it down to good versus evil. That's what Star Wars is: good versus evil. Don't worry about it. There's so many different things, and like I forgot where I saw it. Somebody put it up on X or Twitter, whatever, recently about how the original trilogy was all about good imagery and all of that. And the final shot of episode 4 is based on an image from 1930s Germany, which there's a lot more to sit with there.
Yeah. There's a lot of influences that kind of have come into the whole series, and I think Leslie tried bringing some of hers in there too, right. But I can't see it just being so reductive as to say it's just black versus white, good versus evil.
Right.
No.
I don't think I'd be interested
definitely
if it were that.
Yeah, exactly. It would just be, and I guess she does equate it to kind of a fairy tale, and I guess in a way it kind of is, especially the first one. Like you've got the hero saving the princess. I guess like that is very fairy tale-esque, but it takes a hard turn from there. I wouldn't.
We'll kiss our sisters
if that's all you go with that. Yes, and then that's fun too. I guess that's a retcon, but it's just adding to the lore. But yeah, I think that would be so reductive as well to just say like it's someone, the hero saving the princess, where she does a lot of the saving, and that once they free her from the cell.
Strong female character.
Yeah, one of the best. And, kicks ass with that cool hairstyle.
Star Wars as canon. I 100% believe this. I believe that Leslie Headland watched the prequel trilogy and saw that the Jedi were not supposed to form attachments and were not supposed to have relationships, and which is something that changes, by the way, in the original trilogy. And she said, "Oh, the Jedi deny you your lust? Well, we're going to have a show where this super hot Sith represents that lust that the Jedi deny you, and that Osha is going to be with the guy by the end because." The Jedi bad, Sith good, because
what?
Wow. So there's kind of a lot to unpack in that one statement. Again, I think this is like the third or fourth time that she said Leslie Headland has only watched this once. I don't want to be some huge Leslie Headland defender or anything like that, but I've recently watched a bunch of interviews, and she seems to know her stuff, and she seems to know like, okay, this comes from this era of High Republic. This character comes from here. There's a lot of it that she wanted to bring in, specifically all these elements. She brought them to, again, I think it's Pablo Hidalgo is the dude who okayed all this stuff that like, yes, we can bring this in. But she had a knowledge of it. It wasn't the stuff that like Disney came to her like, hey, can we shoehorn this into the show? I think she has a really decent knowledge of this. I think she just tried to tell a different story. I don't know if she was so successful with it, but to reduce it to she's seen it once and thinks that she understands. And then when she just mentioned that in the original trilogy, it does get changed that Jedis can love. I don't know. At that point, Luke was kind of a self-appointed Jedi, a self-proclaimed Jedi. I don't know that we see too many Jedis other than, Obi-Wan, who really put himself into isolation. And I don't see him having love or attachment, except for possibly for Luke. But it seems like he definitely thinks he owes Luke based off of what happened with his father. So I don't know.
And are the Jedi a thing for him to officially be a Jedi? Like, did he sign the contract? Like, what defines what a Jedi is?
I think Yoda signed him, but I'm not sure. Yoda doesn't specifically tell him not to have attachments or anything like that, but I don't know how complete his training is. A lot of his training happens in between Empire and Jedi. And, there is supplemental material that does kind of fill in that gap. But as far as we know, we don't have that in canon right now. But who knows? There might be new series in the future.
To reduce all of it to good and bad is really, I don't, and using the word seduced by the dark side, that's something that, we've heard from previous movies. And again, do they do a couple of double entendres and things. Yes, but this isn't like the first time you've seen anything like that in Star Wars. I mean, what do you say about Attack of the Clones? Like, does Natalie Portman have anything to cover her shoulders with in that series, or what? like don't.
Not if George has any say. Yeah, fair enough. And it seems like that is one of the things that's preventing Anakin from truly being a Jedi. Like it seems like that's one of the things that struggles. Just because of his love isn't why he becomes a Sith, but it's definitely a factor in there as well. I think there's a myriad of factors, and from what I've heard Leslie Headland kind of explain, I don't think she reduced it to just the one thing. Just his love of Padme is what turned him into a Sith. I don't think she's that reductive on it.
I mean, to be reductive, how many relationships and fights occur due to work-life balance? Like, that's kind of what that thing is to be reductive.
Well, and then the allure that Palpatine is kind of offering him this power, and perhaps there is a way to, save people, bring people back. That has more of an allure than just, it's his love. It's also, the thing that corrupts many, the allure of power.
The tragedy, the irony of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a warped mind Leslie Headland has. She doesn't understand any of this. She says that she thought that getting seduced by the dark side meant literally sexually seduced. That is what Leslie Headland said in an interview. That's
so I think I've read the same interview. She said, I thought of the phrase, seduced by the dark side, and they thought of a different way to depict it. I don't think she thinks that Anakin was literally seduced by Palpatine, but it's kind of that turn of phrase that, again, the power, the possibility of offering protection for his loved ones, the fact that he wouldn't have to hide his love. There's so many factors in it that kind of seduced him to not controlling those emotions, to really live in that anger, to live in those emotions. I don't know. I think it's an interesting way of kind of depicting that. If you have, I'm not sure a female would necessarily have the same motivations as a male. It would be a different way that you could kind of do this. And I could also see it with a female Sith trying to entice a male Jedi to kind of join the dark side. Perhaps you would use every option at your disposal. I don't know. Yeah. I kind of enjoyed it. I'm not super into this relationship that's going to happen, but man, it was kind of intriguing. It's like, how would you convince somebody that you just saw decimate like an entire squad of Jedi that you're not a threat to them at this moment? That is a way that I didn't think of, but yeah, it is making yourself ultimately vulnerable.
Yeah,
completely, and kind of naked. Giving them the power.
Right. Again, it's something that I felt that it did a great job metaphorically and literally, which again is a really big element to visual storytelling. And then it also drops in a couple of Easter eggs of how did he get these scars on his back? Right. It adds more to more mysteries that we're not getting yet. Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering what this series would have been under the Hays Code, but back then to be suggested that they'd show you a kiss scene with a train going into a tunnel, and if you get it, you get it.
Overall bathing suit thing. It would have been okay. It's still seductive. But I don't know. I thought it was really intriguing. I hadn't thought of it that way, and it's that could be kind of interesting. Right. I'm still not convinced that they are a couple or whatever, but they were holding hands at the end, so maybe they are. But I don't know. It seemed more like he was handing her a saber, but perhaps I'm wrong. I could be interpreting that way off, and maybe they're a couple now. Who knows?
Not what it meant, you idiot. I apologize for calling Leslie Headland an idiot, but this is just sick stuff to put in a show. A simple fairy tale, so to speak, about evil is bad and good is good. And she comes out and says, no, evil is good.
To be fair, this was kind of, I believe it's a 20-minute straight to camera kind of, I don't want to belittle it by calling it a rant, but a straight to camera talking piece. I don't think she had this scripted out or anything like that. So I have mentioned that she's repeating certain things numerous times. I think even in this, I've probably repeated myself numerous times. So we're also not going off a script. So I don't want to fault her for that, but it does seem like it's just kind of the same accusation over and over again.
Yeah. Right. To get to the roundabout reason we're focusing on this could be one of, 50 not giant YouTubers that are just kind of saying the same thing. And I don't feel somebody's emotion, somebody's, why they dislike something, just these words like bad writing, Leslie Headland, like, all right, what Kathleen Kennedy was brought up as a bad businesswoman. It's like, that's silly. I don't know. You could say something about the way
she's a good businesswoman.
Right.
This series would be great. Come on.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind her running my business. I'll say that much. Just as long as it gets the same results.
Better than me.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are things that people say that it doesn't feel like they're genuine gripes with the art or the stuff within the show itself. None of it feels tangible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I was hoping for more substance behind a lot of these things rather than just kind of the same buzzwords. But yeah, she has a little bit left, so maybe she'll get into a little bit more of the substance.
If Leslie Headland was watching Lord of the Rings, she would think that Sauron was good. Oh, by the way, did I mention that Darth Plagueis is in this and that he is now this decrepit creature that lives in the cave with Quemar? That's not who Plagueis is. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry.
That's a lot to read into one little shot where he's got his hand, which apparently he's kind of chameleon now. His skin was very, it looked very much like the rock wall to the cave. So that's new. I didn't realize that he had that capability, but I don't know. He's mostly in shadow and you see one hand. I don't know how decrepit he is or anything like that, but fair enough. That seems like it's just reading into it a bit much for me, but
I'm telling you, it's anti-Lolly. He's actually only 2 years old.
I've heard Wikipedia did update his age based off of this show again. So there's like 2 characters that they kind of changed that. But that is kind of the deal. Like these other things aren't canon. So now they're putting this in. It has become canon. So now Wikipedia is updating.
Yeah.
Sorry for Leslie Headland. You know nothing about Star Wars.
Yeah.
She knows nothing. Sorry for hitting play over you.
No, it's fine. Essentially, if something was canon in 2010, it's just now head canon. I mean, I can understand being invested in something that you paid money for, you were told is canon, but Disney, when they assumed Lucasfilm, they said, all right, all that it's not canon. I can't fault a company for following through on what they said. I can be bothered. I can be like, oh darn, it's a shame that happened. But I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the same thing with Marvel. Right? Again, they're owned by DC now, but there was some really cool stuff like Infinity War in the comics. I love that so much more. It makes sense why Thanos would be doing it as opposed to his motivation in the MCU, but the MCU is its thing. I don't know. You still have the comics. You still have all the Legends material out there. If you want to enjoy those characters, they're there. But here's how they're being introduced to the canon, which is Disney's choice now.
Right.
It's kind of upsetting, but it's what's happening, man.
Right.
You just seem like an awful person. This is unrecognizable as Star Wars. I didn't watch the show in the beginning because I didn't care, and then I started to jump on board with the train of like, let's see how bad this thing is.
The hate train.
I would say to all of you, don't trust anybody who says watch The Acolyte. It's not that bad. It is even worse than people have been making it out to be. It has usurped the entire theme of this universe, and all it wants to say.
What is that?
Usurped the theme of the entire universe. Okay. Wow. I didn't realize that The Acolyte had usurped it by saying bad is good, I'm assuming, is her main argument here. Okay. I mean, that seems a bit strong. I don't think anyone's going to say that this is now the canon. Like Ahsoka came out, Obi-Wan came out. I think a lot of people don't necessarily put those as canon. Same thing with like Book of Boba Fett. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe people see those all as canon, but I think most of us kind of just see the movies as the real canon, and these shows are a bit something extra.
And I'm that. Like I kind of, again, I don't know anything about like the books or graphic novels. I was content with Boba Fett being dead. It was one of those things where it's like, oh, that'd be neat if he actually survived. But when they brought him back in Book of Boba Fett, I was like, I don't care now. It's okay, you did that, but
he got to ride a Rancor, so.
I mean, I get
spoilers.
it. I understand it. If somebody digs it, cool. But I'm not in favor of that. And then I just stopped watching. This is something that I have an issue with. People hate watching things just to quote unquote ride the train. It just
the hate train.
Yeah, I mean, again, make that money, but what you're presenting doesn't seem genuine. If you're just jumping onto something for the sake of hating it, like that's not what art is supposed to be for.
So you're not saying all aboard. Okay.
No, I'll catch the next one.
Is that actually evil is good? This is just us watching a lady whose warped mind thinks that evil is good, and that's what she wanted to play with in this show. Very sorry that this show exists. I'm sorry this is what Lucasfilm has become, and I don't think anything good from Star Wars can ever happen again until this entire regime currently working at Lucasfilm is completely overhauled. But I think that it is a really abhorrent show. 0 out of 10 for the finale.
Stop.
I came away, when you watch a show and you come away loving a lot of the characters, I came away hating the sight of any of the characters. Cool. I'm very sorry for anybody who got cast in the show. I think that you've gotten the gist of it. This is just an awful show that tells you that evil is good, that tells any kids who watch Star Wars still that evil is good, and it just should not be watched by anyone.
Kids.
And Leslie Headland should never work at Disney again.
Wow. Wow.
It's a bit harsh. What can I say? She had a couple other things, and then like a shout out to her patrons. So I apologize. I removed the context for that.
Yeah.
But
and I want to be clear. I don't know. I'm not trying to influence any sort of ill will towards that creator. It could have been anybody. It's just it's not. I have a
collection that's saying almost the same thing.
Right.
It's weird because there's not substantive actual criticism of it. It's just like a whole bunch of buzzwords, and it feels like they're using the same ones. Like, It starts with, do you know who Leslie Headland's former boss is? And then it just kind of keeps going from there. This is horrible. This isn't Star Wars. I would love it if you kind of explained why it's not.
Right.
I guess I was just hoping for more from this, other than clownish and horrible.
Yeah, a 0 out of 10. That's just insane. I don't take you seriously if you see a show that's in focus and has brilliant shots and like. I mean, I've given really, really bad movies a 1 out of 5. Like,
yeah,
and that's like shots that aren't in focus. You could see like crew in something like that.
The boom mic is in every shot.
Like a 0 out of 10, and you watch the whole thing. Interesting.
What would be your lowest rated episode? I think for me it would be 3.
It might be 3.
I don't know why. It's just that chanting really rubbed me the wrong way. And then,
it's cringe. There's certainly
not to be a jerk, but those kid actors, like
the kids were right. Yes,
which I get it. I would be a horrible kid actor too.
I was one, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but I didn't really enjoy that too much. But I do not.
I would not give it a 0. I think there's some interesting shots in that one. I actually think 2, 3, and 7 were both done by the same dude. I wish I could remember his name right now, but he's an interesting filmmaker. I was really kind of excited to see what his take on those were going to be, and I was a little less impressed than I thought I'd be based off of his other material. But
I would say, considering it's 8 episodes, I would say the second half of the series, episodes 5, 6, 7, 8, are much stronger than 1, 2, 3, 4.
I agree. I wish we kind of Yeah, there's so much that I'd want to change, but I couldn't agree with you more. The second half, even with 7 being not a strong episode, much stronger than the first half. So
if I'm scoring
a very weak, not quite thumbs up, but
right,
a little bit more towards down for me.
If I'm scoring it based on what we got, I'd give it like a 5.5, and based on the potential, maybe 7. But on the flip side, if they don't pay any of that off, and I'm left with this, then it's 4. Like it's a very.
I don't think it's the worst Sith or dark character that we've seen before. Like, I really like the Chimere thing. If this is all that we get of him, like, hell, I like this way more than Kylo Ren, but maybe that's just me. That being said, they could totally ruin it by actually explaining it and doing it in a very poor way. So
right.
Kind of like you, if they leave it at this, I'm actually pretty happy with it. Just the Chimere part. The rest of it, it leaves a lot to be desired for me, but it's not the worst Sith character. Like, I'm trying to think of the other ones they brought up. Like Reva and Obi-Wan. I didn't like that character that much. It didn't seem intriguing to me. Like, I didn't care a lot about it. I kind of like Balin from Ahsoka, but I don't know exactly what they're doing with that character now, but he was the one that really intrigued me in that series. I think Chimere might be my favorite Disney dark character so far, but they could ruin that.
Yeah. And one of my gripes would be that, they didn't spend enough time giving us enough to love about these characters, or enough to be invested in with these characters. I'd really like to be attached to some of them. And oh, good, a shot of Yoda at the end, awesome. I'm not ready I'm not done with these toys yet. Don't show me the old ones.
But you don't understand. They didn't use the correct puppet because he doesn't have enough hair. In the prequels, he had way more hair than that. Yeah, it seems like you're just gonna lose no matter what. I've heard a bunch of people complaining about the Yoda cameo, and it's like, fair enough. I mean, he would at least canonically be alive at that time, where some of the other characters might not. So, and he would be one of the uppity ups in the Jedi Council. So
yeah,
it kind of makes sense that he might be eventually involved in this whole Jedi situation, but I don't know. That doesn't exactly thrill me. I'm not like, yes, let's see more Yoda. I feel like I've seen enough Yoda. I've seen enough baby Yoda even.
Yes. And not even to, conflict what was brought up a little while ago, but I would tell you that it's not that bad. As much as I've been accused of being a liar from the predecessor, based on what the gripes that she listed are, I have notes and questions as to, okay, can you expand on that, please? What about the writing is bad? What are clownish misunderstandings? And what specific things are leading you to say that? What about the show is making you say that? And if I were to help you understand that the show is not about having you root for the bad guy, and it's really actually quite ambiguous, does that change anything? Because hearing the gripe as delivered from the top, it seems, there's just, it doesn't feel like we're watching the same show. And when I hear 10s out of 10s, 5 out of 5, 0 out of 10, 1 out of 5, you're not being serious about this. It's not the worst thing. I'm sorry.
It's not my least favorite Disney Star Wars thing. Like, I don't know. I guess there's a couple of elements of Ahsoka that I like, but overall, I think I would have preferred seeing where this is going to go versus where Ahsoka is going to go. But we'll see. Sadly, I'm probably going to watch both.
I think I enjoyed Acolyte more than I enjoyed the Solo movie.
Yeah, I mean, that one was plagued with a bunch of troubles, but yeah, fair enough. I think I might rank it there too. I only saw the Solo one once. Don't think I'll be watching it again.
I can't think of anything that you need to see in that movie. What about Solo is necessary?
I mean, Donald Glover's kind of cool as Lando. Yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling.
Did you give let's say this is it. What is your score for the Acolyte as a whole?
I think I would have to go. So I would think a 5 is just kind of like midway. I'd go a little bit below. So like 4.8, somewhere around there. If I'm going out of 5, I guess 2.5 something, 2.2. I don't know. It's just not. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it to people, but it's really not as bad as they're saying. But overall, I found more to be desired than I found interesting. But
I agree.
I gotta say, for just the film references that it does alone, like it deserves more than 0 stars. Like it's got a Fugitive reference, it's got an Aliens reference. Like there's so many like really cool shots that it's doing. And I think this is the first Disney beheading that we've got, like a double beheading after a double Sith kebab. That's kind of cool.
Suggested it though. I don't think they showed it.
Fair enough. Due to the blocking, the camera moves, and it is at head level. But yes, a tree is now in front of you, so you don't see it. But I don't know. There's some interesting things that happen in this that I really like visually, and then musically, everything except for the chanting and the song that they ended episode 7 with. I really dug what they were doing. It really felt like Star Wars scores to me, and I felt like they're bringing back some interesting themes. I hope they're doing that for a reason, like the Kylo Ren every time we saw Chimere. I hope they're doing that for a reason, and it's not just, hey, we have access to this theme. But we'll see.
Yeah. If they end up not doing a second season, I would not suggest anybody to watch this show, if only to say, if you do enjoy it, you're going to be let down, because they're not going to close any of these doors they opened. But I don't know if there's more, I would have to see how that turns out before I go recommending it to anyone, because there is stuff that's just, again, mystery box, Easter egg stuff that just it's not done yet.
Yeah, well, it might be. If you believe the rumors, it's done. Everyone's been fired. But
Kathleen Kennedy's done.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's been done.
Yeah, I keep hearing that. You know, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'd be at the same thing. I wouldn't actually be going out here recommending it for anybody, right. But I really don't think it's as bad as it's getting a rap for.
And I agree.
It's not good. So I don't know. I'm not looking to champion it. I'm just looking to say, I think you're being a bit harsh on it.
Yeah, right. I agree. And things that you brought up that you have issues with, you're telling me specific things. This doesn't have a resolution. This happened here, and here are things. To just say these like buzzwords like bad writing, like, all right, what about the writing is bad? And you're talking about something that may not be the writing, unless you see the script and it says OSHA is next to droid, which actually should help her but doesn't. Like there's a lot of hands on deck with stuff like this. To just blanket statement and say bad writing or just these very dismissive takes, I don't think that's good faith. Am I using the word good faith right?
I would say so. Yeah, I think it is kind of assuming intention that, you know, you did this because you're saying bad is good, and you know, you don't understand it.
Yeah, I
definitely don't seem like they're in good faith. Yeah, I think I would definitely say that it seems a little bit in bad faith, but you know, if she could back up what she's saying, that'd go a long ways towards making it not as bad faith, if you will.
Yeah. To blame Leslie Headland for everything is a little silly. And again, I'll go back to this parallel. J.J. Abrams was not around for all of Lost. So a lot of the mystery box, you know, Easter egg shit, they blame him for. And as of season 2, he was gone. So
I don't know for the sequel series. You know, they blame him a lot for that too. But in 2, he was gone. But they brought him back.
So yeah, it's frustrating. I'm not saying whatever you feel about it. If you love it, if you hate it, it's certainly the way you feel. But when it comes to substance of the show and actually elements that are being portrayed in this series, I haven't seen much that makes me think that these are people who are treating this entertainment with the right lens.
Yeah. I at least didn't hear the complaint of the saber handles are too girthy. That seems to be the other one that I keep seeing on the internet. So I'm glad she didn't go there with that one. They've kind of changed, you know, widths all throughout the years. Like the original one was pretty girthy, but they were pretty chunky in this one. I don't know.
I have not studied the girth of the
Saber handles? Oh, you should. It's changed all throughout the series.
I have a lightsaber fleshlight, but that's completely different.
Slightly different.
Well, Gray, the long, winding road of the Acolyte is finally over, or for now at least. What do you look for moving forward from Star Wars? Do you want to see it just terminated outright? Would you like to see something else from?
No, I am excited for some of the future. I think Andor season 2, I'm really excited to see. There is this show that they've been teasing for quite a while that I kind of know nothing about, Skeleton Crew. That could be really interesting. And then Ahsoka season 2, I'm interested to see what they're going to do with the Balin character, seeing as how, sadly Ray Stevens is not with us. So I don't know. I'd like to see what they're going to do with some of this, but Andor is really the only thing that's exciting me. But sadly, they probably got me hooked. I'll probably be watching them.
Yeah.
What about you? What's your future with Star Wars?
I still have to watch Andor. I think it's ridiculous that I've watched all of Acolyte before watching one episode of Andor. Like, I don't know how the hell I did that.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite thing. No pressure on you.
Okay.
If you don't like it, cool. It's not what I expected out of a Star Wars show, and I was like, oh, this could be really cool. And this isn't like a kid's show. This is okay. I really dig this.
I think
it felt good to see something new that didn't suck.
Very well. I think what they should do is be a bit more methodical about what they're planning. The sequel trilogy is just a giant. What the hell did you do? It is the anti-Marvel. It's clear that no matter what they do, there's going to be a chunk of the internet that's going to hate it. So just, if you're going to keep doing this stuff, expect just criticism and hatred, but just, have it planned out. And, I don't know. I'm kind of okay with anything moving forward, but just, I think all of this coverage on this series, all publicity is good publicity. And I think this second series might happen in spite of all of the negative coverage.
It is one of the most talked about series. Right. I can't tell you that it's the most popular, but it's one of the most popular to talk about. My feed is full of nothing but coverage, but again, I do this to myself by actually clicking on something. So that could just be me. But there's a lot of videos out there, and from kind of smaller channels getting big hits on it. So people are looking for information on this thing, which is weird for a show that supposedly everyone hates.
Yeah. And I think we did it wrong too. So the 6 people that watched this video, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Sorry to give you such an unpopular opinion about this. Well, until next time, Gray, thank you for doing this with me.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me, man.
Bye.